So thank you. Yeah, I will. I would. First of all, I'm very happy that I'm here and you invited me, and this is a nice opportunity to speak about what I think, or what is in my opinion, the most under or ignored conflict in the moment in the world, in the South China Sea. And I can only give you a brief introduction to it. I will not dive very deep into it because we don't have enough time for this. So first about myself, I studied in, I studied in Kiel, Greifswald, and in Reykjavik, Scandinavian Studies and Politics. And then I went to China for about 20 years, worked there for different German-speaking companies, and then I founded my own company. And due of COVID, I returned to Germany 2 years ago. And since then, I'm working or I'm writing for Finanzmarktwelt.de. It's a little bit cut it down now. This is normally focused on finance topics, but I'm writing 99% of my articles about China and surrounding areas, which makes me the German-speaking journalist who writes most about China in the moment. So roughly last year I wrote about 250 articles. So you can follow me on my English Substack, so where I translate roughly my articles. One topic I will not go on is the criminal activities in the South China Sea. This will be too complicated. But just keep in mind there is one underlying other conflict, and that is illegal activities, mostly smuggling of anything, including human beings and drugs. So background: the South China Sea has the 8 neighbors of China, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, and Taiwan. And all of them, they have a exclusive economic zone of 200 miles, which, what you can really easily see, already poses conflicts itself, because the EEZs are overlapping by themselves. Interesting point on the South China Sea is on the first page, the resources. The South China Sea is very rich on fish grounds, and you see already they are overfished on many places. So there is a battle for new fish grounds, better fish grounds. This is one underlying conflict too, and the other is the oil and gas fields in the South China Sea. That's about 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 11 billion barrels of oil, which is estimated. And in addition to this, there are many other valuable minerals like copper, gold, silver, and magnesium. So these are also a battle for the resources, or the natural resources. And the next is the trade routes through the South China Sea. On this map is not the most important harbor of China for oil and gas. This is Dalian, is somewhere then here on the Bohai Sea, in the opposite to Beijing. So all ships with oil and gas from the Arabian Peninsula must pass through the Malacca Strait, so where Singaporean gas are very important, and then travel through the Taiwan Strait and then up to Dalian. So the main sources for China for natural gas and for oil is coming from the Arabic Peninsula, and the other is coming from Russia, so all have to pass close to the coast. Then the main resources for coal is Indonesia, which must be somewhere here, Australia, where you can see already the trade routes here from Australia, and also from Russia. So not only China is relying on the free passage through the South China Sea, but also Taiwan, Japan, which must be somewhere here, to get gas, oil, and other things. And then on the other, on the other side, we have the trade routes from China to the west, which China is producing about 35% of all manufactured goods in the world, and through the South China Sea to the west is about 90% of all goods sent by sea in the world. Then we have Australia already, as they are relying on the on free passage through the South China Sea, as 24% of their total trade is going through the South China Sea. So whoever controls the China Sea controls a lot of resources, fish, oil, gas, and minerals, and also the trade routes. And this is why we speak about the so-called first island chain. The map is not totally exactly, because also this chain group belongs to the first China, to the first island chain, because here has to be traded. Here you see Kunshan, because all the oil and gas from Russia must also go through this island chain. So whoever controls this island chain controls the South China Sea. So this is geopolitical, very important location. And the second is the Malacca Strait here, which is controlled by Malaysia and Singapore, and also in parts by India. I come later to this point. So if you cut off the Malacca Strait, you cut off basically all trade routes from the China Sea to the west, also to most of the places in the Americas. Then we have the islands within the South China Sea. I already marked in this chart the contestants of the islands. We have three big island groups. This is the Parcel Islands here. Then we have the Scarborough Fair Shoal. And the third is the Spratly Island, which is the biggest part. All of these islands are contested by different states. All of them are rich on natural resources, oil, gas, fish. This makes it so important for everybody to have the feet on the ground there and to have to control this. So if we go back to this chart of the EEZ, I marked here the EEZ of China in green, which is the smallest part of the sea. But China claims much more of this, which is called the 9 dash line. So this is the red dot line, the red dash line. Actually, it's a little bit funny or ironic, to be better to say. The 9 dash line was before 11 dash line. 2 dash was here added, and was imposed by the Republic of China in 1948. The ironic is that the People's Republic of China adapted the 11 dash line, cut 2 dashes on it, and it's called now the 9 dash line. And China claims all this area within the red dashes of its own. And as you can understand, the other countries are not very happy about this. So they are not claiming only to process it, but they also claim that even everyone is shipping through this this area should be under Chinese law and under Chinese jurisdiction. Which brings us to the central point of the presentation, the RAC. Okay, no, okay. So China is pushing through this this 9 dash line with exploration ships, with the coast guards, with fishing boats. Which is very important because the fishing boats are part of the naval of the Chinese army. So each civil ship in China is also part of the military. If you want to build a ship in China, you have to follow the rules of the military. And also the commander, the captain of a ship, is automatically under the control of the army. So China is using the fishing fleets very often as a proxy for the military. In the South China Sea, for example, I come later to this point, they are also collecting buoys, for example, in order to claim territory for China. And then we have the man-strip islands, man-made islands, which is China building in the South China Sea. I'm not totally sure about the conditions of them. I often read articles that some islands are deconstructed already, falling apart. On the other hand, they're building new, so I'm not very sure what is the situation there. So, to our wreck, the Sierra Madre. The Sierra Madre is a wreck from the Second World War, and the Philippines put the wreck into the sea, which brings us first to the point. Yeah, so you see here where it's located. It's already on the extension, on the outer line of the Philippine EEZ, which is also inside the 9 dash line. So the Philippines put the ship there, sink the ship there, to underline their sovereignty in this area. Here we need to speak a little bit about different definitions of land, or better, of islands. What is an island? An island in the legal systematic is a piece of land in the sea, surrounded by water, above the tides, and can sustain human life. So it needs somehow water, somehow something to eat. So human beings could be able to live on this island. If it's not possible that human beings can live there, it's not an island. The second is what is we have rocks, something like rocks, other natural things like a reef, which is above the waterline, above the tides, but cannot sustain human beings. So the consequence is in the island, if there is an island, you have the right to have a 12-mile zone around the island. If it's just a rock, it's you cannot claim any land about any sea about this. And then you have the LTE, low tide elevations, like a shoal, or a sand stripe, or a coral reef, or something like this. So which is mostly under the water, cannot sustain human beings, and has no consequences in the jurisdiction of a country, of the sovereignty of a country. And then you have man-made constructions like ships, like man-made islands, something like this, and also this has no indications about this. So in 1999, the Philippines grounded Sierra Madre within the Philippine EEZ. China opposed this very strictly, and in 2013 the Philippines filed a lawsuit on the PCA, on the Court of Appeals in Den Haag, which is not the criminal court or something else. It's a little bit it's a very weak court. You can file a lawsuit there, but you can also then select your judges, and the result is not really binding because the PCA has no force to no power, can use no power to put through the result. However, as the Philippines filed a lawsuit, China opposed this immediately and said, okay, we will not accept the ruling, whatever is the outcome. In 2016, the PCA ruled in most parts in favor to the Philippines, which means they ruled that the Sierra Madre is within the EEZ. China has no legal basis to claim this area, but they ruled also that the group of islands, the Spratly Islands, should be international water because historically everybody is fishing there in the area. So whatever rules applies for the normal EEZ should not apply because historically all neighboring countries of the South China Sea were fishing there, and it should continue. One important influence in this conflict is between China and the Philippines, the change in the leadership in the Philippines 2022, as Marcos Jr. Won the election for the president and followed Duterte. Duterte was anyway a very strange figure in the Philippine politics, but his way was more to have a good relationship with China, invited China for investments in the Philippines, and tried to appease China. And what we know from history, appeasement policy never works, never. So with the election of Ferdinand Marcos Jr., this changed. And this is a little bit a blueprint of this area in the moment. He changed his policy, and he wants to have more and better relation again with the US. They signed a new defense treaty. They also have a new defense treaty with Japan. And this is what we can see also in the whole region. So Singapore also is tending in the moment more to the US than to the Chinese side. Malaysia just elected the new president this week, so we have to see what is going on there. But even Vietnam, which is a communist country, is also more focusing on the US side. They bought now ships coast guards from the US. Xi Jinping just visited a few weeks ago Vietnam, which is a sign how important Xi Jinping and China takes Vietnam, the change in the course of Vietnam. However, I told you about the relatively difficult situation, geographic difficult situation. So they all want to have a good neighborhood with China. So this is an act of balance between appease to China and have good relations with China because it's mostly the most important trading partner, but on the other hand, distance themselves because they are afraid of that China is becoming too much power. So in Singapore, for example, 2 weeks ago or something like this, they arrested the first natural Chinese businessman for relations with the Communist Party in China, which never happened before and is a relatively interesting case for Singapore in the moment. So in the last year we saw a lot of escalation around the Sierra Madre. It started with the fishing boats. They introduced the water much more regularly. They took the buoys away from the Philippines, which marks the waterway through the shoals. So the Philippines try to put new ones in, but the fishermen put it away again. The Chinese put themselves new buoys in it. The Philippine side threw it away. So this was the first phase. Then the second was that the Philippines sent ships to the Sierra Madre. China tries to block the ships with the Coast Guard. It's the first confrontation was with water cannons. The second confrontation was simply that Chinese ships rammed the Philippines ships. Then the US entered more the waters. They have combined patrols with the Philippine side, the same with Japan. Japan and Philippines conducted joint patrols, Philippines and Canada, Philippines and Australia. So more international forces came into this conflict and showed up. And the US and also the other forces that tried to enforce the free navigation rule within the Chinese Sea, and the Chinese try to block it. Also, the Philippines try to involve a little bit more the ASEAN countries and try to negotiate with China a new code of conduct, how to proceed in the South China Sea. But don't kill me, but I think since 2004 there are different efforts to introduce new code of conducts with new success. So what is the motive for the Chinese to escalate the situation? Of course, for China, this area is very sensitive, because if you can block the South China Sea, then you can block the trade lines, what I explained before. Second are the resources, which are important for China. They have always a problem to feed their people. And of course, there is the will to push further the 9-dash line. With all this, China wants to have the hegemony in the South China Sea. And for me, the most interesting point is that the aim is not South China Sea itself. The aim is Taiwan. What China is trying to do is following. They think the Sierra Madre is the weak point of the Americans. They don't think that American politics can explain why somebody should be interested in a wreck in the middle of nowhere. And nobody can explain to the electors why the US should fight a war for a wreck. So they try to push the Americans away. The consequence of this is that nobody in the South China Sea or the neighboring countries, Taiwan, can be sure that the Americans come to help if China is invading Taiwan. This is the geopolitical game China is playing there. From my understanding in the moment is that the Biden administration understood the gamble, and they are stepping in, and they are stepping not only in with words, but they are only stepping in with forces. And now we come to the very interesting point, how nearly the whole world can be involved in this conflict. And actually this was very interesting for me to figure this out for this speech. I hope the battery will keep staying. So the first is we will see in this year more escalation, or we already see more escalation in South China Sea. More fisher boats are coming, more patrol boats from the Chinese Coast Guard is there. Already we have the first sea maneuver there, and more are to come with the Asian countries, in joint patrols with Philippines and India, also new patrols with the US and Australia. And the most important event would be the elections in the US in November this year. This outcome has a significant influence on the crisis there. So Biden, as I said before, in my understanding, he understands what happens there and is clear about the consequences, and he's not giving the wreck away. From my point of view, Trump is not mentally capable to understand what happens there, simply as this. We know Trump has problems to concentrate for a longer time, complicated things you cannot explain to him, and this conflict is totally complex. I think Trump is just willing to give the wreck away and the assistance with the Philippines, which left the Philippines vulnerable, and China will step in. The Asian countries, they try to balance between China and the US. They try to counter the coming influence of the Chinese, but they also don't want that the US has too much influence in the region. One very important influence point is also the Chinese economy. The signs in the moment is that the not very much growing economy is worsening in the moment. This is the first number we see in these weeks. There's no articulated GDP target in the moment. It will be on the in March, April, there will be a determination of the GDP, but the first estimation from the provinces for 2024 is about 5%. Some experts rate a little bit from the real numbers, the economy will starve. And I think in China will happen the same as we saw in Russia. If you have a weak economic situation, then you try to pinpoint to something outside to escalate this and attract the attention to this, so the people are concentrating on the new conflict and not on the economic situation. This is a normal playbook on authoritarian leaders, so I think that the same goes for Xi Jinping. The first conflict he will raise is the South China Sea, the second is Taiwan. In the moment there is a lot of silence about Taiwan in the Chinese community, so I don't know exactly what happens there in the moment. So how it could escalate. So the first thing, we talk about the military situation. So of course the US could increase the activities in the Philippines under the defense agreement. The second escalation point would be on the Philippine side, that they asked Japan to help, to step in with intelligence, with logistical support, and then also with ships and military aid. For Japan, they declared now Philippines also to their main interest. I showed you already the first island chain. So for Japan is belonging to the first island chain and also the Philippines. In their mind, if China is suppressing the first island chain, on any point they are also in the longer run suppressing on Japan itself, and they try to encounter this. The third party on a relatively early stage will enter is Australia, simply as they need to have the trade lines open for their own ships. Within the steps, I think the NATO in one way or the other has to step in, because if the US is increasing their naval activity in this area, they need to shift ships and material from other parts. So the NATO will step in to help them out on other areas. The same goes for the AUKUS. This is mainly on atomic submarines, but I think in the public it's not clear that the AUKUS is becoming more and more also a military agreement. And then a very important part has the Asian countries who can enter the conflict and try to push back the Chinese side, and the ultimative step would be to block the Malacca Strait for oil and gas ships to China. So, and in this step also can help India, because India introduced a new carrier which is especially designed to block the Malacca Strait. And this could be, if the Asian countries, Singapore and Malaysia, is not doing this, they can also do this. And this would be the ultimate escalation point on this Philippine side. If we look to the Chinese side, the first group of countries they would normally ask for is the BRICS countries, so Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, sorry. But this group is very inhomogeneous and so heterogeneous. And especially India has its own interests and is not really willing to work together in a conflict with China. In the opposite, they are happy if China is becoming weaker because they have their own conflicts with India. and they are also increasing in the moment. So the second would be the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is a dedicated defense agreement, mostly with Central Asian countries, which has normally no access to the naval side, so they are a little bit helpless. And also the SCO, they meet, but I don't have the feeling that it's a really strong group of countries. So what is left are the usual suspects: Russia, Iran, and North Korea. If Russia in the moment capable to help China on the naval side is very questionable. The naval fleet is very weak. We saw it in the Ukraine war. About 25% of the Black Sea armada is already sunken. Iran will not directly enter the conflict, but they will use their proxy forces like the Houthi in the moment, so they will increase the attacks on the US and the allies, which means they need to support, they need to pay also attention to other parts of the world to push back the Iran interests. And then we have North Korea, which would also not enter with military forces the conflict, but they can also threaten the US, they can have nuclear tests, they can threaten South Korea, which immediately has the US has to respond. So this is the military side, and then we have, of course, the sanction side. This can range from very small things to something what I would say is the mother of all sanctions. This is basically sanctions like we put in place against Russia, but with a totally different outcome. So the mother of all sanctions would be to disconnect China, Hong Kong, and Macau from the SWIFT system, which immediately leads to the effect that the whole export business of China is down immediately. Nobody can pay any goods to China if the SWIFT is down. They have an own system, but only in the world 36 banks, and mostly in Singapore actually, are connected with the Chinese system, and the Chinese system is not really designed to transfer money, but just to send information. The downside of this is if we introduce sanctions like this, it will be hard for us. The Chinese side, last year they tried to figure out on many ways how to encounter the sanctions. And a lot of rhetorical things and practical things we saw from the Chinese side in the last year was to harden the country against any possible sanctions in any kind of conflict. But the Chinese experts are very clear: if Russian-like sanctions are introduced, China cannot counter this, and they will not survive this economically. But China has also an atomic bomb in his arsenal. They can sell the US bonds. China is the second biggest holder of US treasuries and bonds. If they put it on one day on the market, we are back, I don't know when, but I don't think that anybody of us wants to have this situation. So, SWIFT sanctions, and this is the end of my presentation, is simply not only a catastrophe for China, it's for all of us a catastrophe, and it will be much more disastrous than Corona or what we saw with the Russian sanctions. That's my presentation, and now you can ask questions.
always the bad cop. If you don't know yet, he's the nice cop and I'm the bad cop. And I unfortunately have to tell you that we are a little bit late on schedule. So if you do have questions, let's put that to the refreshments, if that's okay with you, to ask you in person.
Yeah.
There's some refreshments. So the plan is now that we're going to take some refreshments again. And in the meantime, you can ask him anything. And actually, when the camera is not rolling, maybe he's going to tell you more secrets. I'm not sure yet, but maybe that's a big chance also. And then at 5, and we are a little bit late in schedule, so about 5, I wish that we are all going to sit downstairs. There's some wonderful people from the film screening already there, and they're going to give us some interesting ideas on the panel. And then we are going to have a snack at around 5:30, 5:40. And the plan is also you take the snacks and then you sit with the snacks to watch the movie. Okay? So thank you very much for your cooperation, and all hate to me then. Yes, and thank you also very much.